Welcome to Web3 Watchdogs, the podcast that takes a deep dive into the world of Web3 security, compliance, and risk. Join Michael Pearl as he interviews executives from across the Web3 industry to uncover the challenges and opportunities of this rapidly evolving space. Web3 Watchdogs is sponsored by Cyvers, your one-stop shop for Web3 security and threat mitigation. Cyvers harnesses the power of AI to eliminate hacks, scams, fraud, and compliance challenges in real time, and even before they happen. For more information, visit cyvers.ai. That's CYVERS.ai.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Web3 Watchdogs. And before we dive into the conversation with Shiran, just one small request. If you enjoy the content, please rate us 5 stars. Share it with your network, recommend it to your friends, and obviously hit the subscribe button on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other podcast platform that you're listening or watching it at. And today we have Shiran Kleiderman. Shiran is the co-founder and the CEO of Kleiderman Security, a company that provides CISO and risk mitigation leadership and services with a focus on Web3 and crypto companies. You'll have to tell me the difference between Web3 and crypto, right? Shiran is also the former CISO and head of IT at Celsius, which I'm sure is going to be very interesting for the listeners and the audience. He is the cybersecurity and cryptography and cryptocurrency expert and an investor and advisor to various companies. Shiran, welcome to the show.
Hi there. Nice to be here. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Very happy to have you. So before we dive in, perhaps a few words about yourself, your background. How did you come to work in the space of cybersecurity and especially in the space of Web3 and crypto and cybersecurity?
Perfect. Yeah, so in the cybersecurity field, you can say for 20 plus years, started in the military, like almost everyone in Israel, 8200, then Matzov, the encryption, cyber defense unit of the IDF, the military here in Israel. And after that, went to the private sector, dealt with consultancy. Yes, the segue from Matzov, the encryption unit, to cryptocurrency was almost immediate. So in 2014, went into crypto, Web3. It was a name like that back then, and developed with friends a Bitcoin wallet, that had security features that we'll mention in a bit, talk about. So, my core interest was cryptography, encryption, and then the segue, of course, to cryptocurrency was just natural. Also invested a bit, but it was mainly for the technical aspects. Yeah, that was my interest back then. Today, how to just protect and develop, you could say, in a secure manner. Pretty early into crypto, / Web3. Yeah. The same, you could say. It's just a marketing, you could say, tactic that people use today. And then mainly worked in American companies. One company, K2 Intelligence, today it's K2 Integrity, was the CTO of the office here in Israel, dealt with cyber threat intelligence, deep web, dark web intelligence. From that operation was spun out / sold to a company that we founded called Blue Voyant. It's a large MSSP, managed security service provider. Moved to the US, and from here to there, joined Celsius and worked there for 4 years. And interesting times, of course, in the industry and in general. And as you said, my role there was Chief Security Officer, Head of IT, in an interesting and very evolving field, which is new when you scale companies and when you scale tech and such. And these days, like you said at the beginning, I have a company that provides CISO / Chief Security, Chief Information Security Officer services for Web2 / crypto companies. That's the focus. A lot of lessons learned throughout the years, a lot of course, demand for security and risk mitigation. And that's the goal. Just to help companies build security programs, comply with regulations, scale, and just manage themselves in a secure, quiet, and client-facing way. Bottom line. So that's the goal today.
Very interesting. And a fun fact from your biography that you didn't mention, but it is written in your LinkedIn profile. You claim that you built the first secret sharing based Bitcoin wallet. What does it mean?
So one of the first, yeah. So you could say in the military you see things, and then in cryptography you see things, and specifically in the academia. And the wallet that we developed in 2014, 2015 was secret shared, you could say, not MPC, multi-party computation, but it had elements of secret sharing between the wallet itself and an IoT, an NFC or Bluetooth external device, IoT, Internet of Things. That was the buzzword back then. And bottom line, instead of relying just on a PIN code, or back then biometrics was less into play in Android and iPhone and all that, secret sharing between the wallet and an external device. So in order to sign, you need to introduce, or you need to involve your smartwatch, an NFC tag, a Bluetooth chip, a YubiKey, for example. So these are things that we were interested in back then. We developed, it was a consumer facing wallet. It's called Aegis Wallet. It went pretty well. And yeah, those were the early days of, okay, let's develop secure, seamless as possible, you could say, solutions for Web.
It's interesting because here in the show, and me personally in my role at Cybers, we're mostly focused on the EVM wallets and the Ethereum wallets and so on, obviously MetaMask specifically. But I'm just curious about, the Bitcoin side of things. What type of innovation is there out there with respect to security for Bitcoin wallets?
Yeah. So back then, I think that the main thing in 2014, maybe Ethereum wasn't even born, or was on the brink of being born. Yeah, I don't remember exactly. But the goal was to secure wallets, to secure transactions. Yes, because we came from the military and cryptography and also academia. We said, okay, let's put something that for us is natural, but for a new field like this just doesn't exist. So everything we're talking about is agnostic at the end of the day to Bitcoin, to EVMs, to Ethereum, the 10 and hundreds of other protocols and such, each one with their maturity, each one with their tech stack, each one with what they support. And yeah, I assume we'll talk and mention again very naturally of, okay, NFTs, how they started and how now they're shifting, you could say, to Bitcoin with ordinals and stuff. So bottom line, things are evolving, and like you need to protect on one chain or one protocol, of course, you need to protect on the others. And for enterprises, for large companies, for medium companies, at the end of the day, to be agnostic with their solutions and their support for the various protocols, that's, of course, something that's needed and wanted, because you don't want to be only an EVM or Ethereum or Polkadot, shop or trading firm. Yeah. I'm talking about the end clients. You want to support, as many protocols as necessary. The ones that, of course, are mature and secure, or the ones that, from the business perspective, it's good to be early in them. Again, without talking about, trading, speculation, and all that. Yeah. Diversity is good.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And you made a very good point with respect to being agnostic, because Cybers started off with the EVM chains, and recently we introduced Bitcoin as well. And obviously we extended our monitoring and detection and prevention services to Bitcoin, because in this new economy that, we're all building, you have the playground where, people trade and swap the EVM tokens. And then you have Bitcoin, which is kind of the more, let's say, digital gold, where people store their funds. So it's interesting. Yeah, for sure. I agree with you that you need to cover both areas to be relevant and to really protect the assets of the users.
Yeah. And specifically, everything we're talking about here, and from my experience, we're always looking at retail facing clients. Yeah. If they're on Robinhood, yeah, it's not a commercial, but yes, there's Bitcoin and all the rest, or if it's more institutional clients. So at the end of the day, the need to support the diversity, it needs to be agnostic, bottom line, because there's interests from the retail side and the more institutional side. Yeah,
for sure. So recently I read your post, which was quite interesting. And just to summarize it in one sentence, you claim that a CISO, a CISO, of a Web3 company needs new skill sets and new expertise. Can you elaborate on that? What do you mean by new, and how is it different from, let's say, a Web2 CISO or a Web3 CISO a year ago?
Yeah. So one, to be a Web3/crypto CISO, you need to know the basics, of course, from Web2 and legacy systems even, like data centers, Today, data centers, of course, that's the key thing that large enterprises work with, and then step by step they migrate to the cloud. But bottom line, legacy Web2 security, legacy infrastructure, legacy regulations, best practices, that's the basic. When you talk about backups and key management and managing IT, and of course, human behavior and protecting from fraud and such, that's the basic. And then when you're introduced to crypto, and you see all these new technologies, chains, protocols, smart contracts, custody, hot wallets, warm wallets, cold wallets, whatever, these are new concepts for many people. That's one. Moreover, the transactions, the interactions, when money is stolen at the end of the day, they're mixed in and merged in to the financial aspects, meaning you need to understand what's borrowing and lending. You need to understand what's front running. You need to understand how trading works. And then only understanding the legacy Web2 stuff of how to configure a firewall or how to secure AWS or how to manage keys, that's not enough. You need to understand the financial aspects, the dynamics, how market makers work, how exchanges work, how trading works, how borrowing and lending works, and more. What we called in the old world, but also now, like the business logic. Therefore, for many CISOs, and there are not too many CISOs in Web3, you can say, these days, there will be more, and there are more, and the regulatory requirements, we'll talk about that also. But you need to really understand, the security and cyber aspects, and then the financial aspects, and the new compliance aspects of the scene, and wrapping it, there are 3 or 4 more topics, but you're a money mover, meaning you need to understand how the assets work, and you need to understand how trading works. And this is new expertise in many extents, you can say, that current CISOs in Web2 world, if I'm a CISO of a health company or an AI startup, I don't deal with these things. And also if I'm a CISO in a financial firm, I understand the trading, I understand the stock tickers, I understand the trading platforms and such. But in crypto, you need to understand the financial risk much more. You need to understand the counterparties much more. And like we said, a lot of terms that just don't exist in the regular world. Minting and burning and redeeming, and what's the stable coin and what it's backed by, and more. So there are a lot of aspects of counterparty, financial risk, and of course all the new technology that you need to understand more at and in. And this is the beautiful thing also, to collaborate with the various teams or the domains within the company, finance, and legal, and compliance.
I always say that, not even CISO, right? Even if you're dealing with marketing, or if you're, obviously if you're a developer, but even if you're, a BD at a company, you need to understand a little bit about, coding and the technology. You need to understand, as you said, the finance side of things. And may I add as well, you need to understand the compliance and the regulations.
Yep.
You need to master all that to actually figure out how to act in your role and how to maximize the achievements of the company, again, regardless of what you're doing, whether it's marketing or developing or product management and so on. But just to follow up on what you said, according to our data, about 80% of the hacks in Web3, they actually originate from Web2 vulnerabilities. And there are tons of examples for that, because you can have the most sophisticated mechanisms in play. You can have, multi-sig wallets, and you can use, custodians. But at the end of the day, some glitch in the interface that fools you to believe that, XYZ can cause you to sign a transaction, hint, the WazirX case.
Yeah.
And then eventually you can execute a transaction, and all your safeguards in Web3 didn't work. So you mentioned that you need to master the bread and butter databases and all the Web2 security infrastructure, and you also need to learn the new Web3 security infrastructure. But may I add on top of that, you also need to synchronize between them, and you need to make sure that both of them are in play to actually protect the system. What do you think?
Yeah. So this pyramid, or the opposite, meaning this upside down pyramid of the Web 2 parts, and then the Web 3 above that, this is exactly what we're talking about, the need to master this whole pyramid or tech stack. That's one. Then, yes, when you talk with Web 3 counterparties, they always say give or take, okay, our smart contract was audited, and our Web3 protocols have been time tested, give or take, or it's decentralized. But then when you go deeper, you understand that the smart contract is protected by a key now, owned by a key that's not saved securely, for one example. Or yes, there's decentralized nature and everything, but the servers are not hardened, the validators. And then, okay, everything is decentralized and we have a team of 10 and everything, but their laptops and devices aren't managed in any way. And you could install malware in a click of a button, you can say, or all the sites that they go to, various trading sites and DeFi sites and whatever. At times, yes, it's easy to get infected with malware. And then the strength of the smart contract and the strength of the protocol and decentralization all relies on this, the upside down pyramid. Where's the key? Which permissions? Domain security. The front end was hacked because there's no 2FA on Cloudflare. And this is exactly the coordination, the merge that we need. And also, yes, we're doing very good smart contract audits, but we need to look at the infrastructure. We need to look at the operations. We need to look at the people. We need to deal with awareness and 20 other topics. So I totally agree that, yes, step by step, Web3 is getting much more stronger. And you could say Bitcoin, for example, has never been hacked. Just the protocol or the network, the blockchain. But yes, the applications and other new protocols and blockchains, which are very strong, but the applications and how they're built, this puzzle, how it's built, and the full tech stack, then you find holes. And this is why, yes, you need to look at it holistically, and you need to understand the finance, and you need to understand the exact business operations. And as a whole, we need to do more. And again, these are long topics at times. Do more and more due diligence on counterparties, and not only, blindly believe, okay, it's a smart contract, maybe protected also the keys with MPC and tens of other stories, Counterparty risk management, what we call in the technical terms, third party vendor risk management. These are key. They need to improve. And this pyramid or tech stack just needs to get stronger. It is getting stronger because there are good people in this field and products / vendors that like you and more. So things are advancing. But some tweaks to do as this progresses.
Yeah, just to add two comments to what you said. So first of all, with respect to auditing is super important. I totally agree with that. But actually, according to our data, 9 out of 10 smart contracts that were hacked were pre-audited.
Correct.
And you wouldn't believe, like some of the companies have gone into the length of actually taking 2 auditors or taking 3 auditors to audit one single smart contract more than once, re-auditing every new iteration and change and update and so on. Still didn't help them, right? So you need other tools. Obviously, monitoring, which we'll talk about in a second, is one example. But that's just a small comment about that. And one more thing, may I add, is also social engineering. Yep. Because at the end of the day, if you have the best encryption, the best protection, if you have 1 or 2 or 3 people that have the access to the system, and you can trick them somehow, especially now with the AI in play, into opening the doors, the floodgates, right? At the end of the day, nothing will help unless you protect yourself and you prepare yourself for that option as well.
Correct. Yeah. humans at the end of the day are the weakest link. With all the technology, with all the Fort Knox, with everything. At the end of the day, humans are the weakest link. Bottom line, AI is something that gives the ability for the hackers, the capabilities to scale the attacks. And at the beginning, I thought, okay, maybe it's just a buzz or trend or fear tactic, but it is. AI helps the attackers conduct more social engineering, send out more emails, do more deep fakes. Yeah, you and I maybe are not even real in the sense on this talk. So social engineering, the human aspect, yeah, human behavior. These are the problems. Yeah, one time and ongoing, because things are going so fast. It's just hard to get away from all these attacks, you can say, and fraud.
Yeah, fraudsters are becoming, gradually much more sophisticated, and obviously the protection systems and the services need to keep up.
Yeah.
But we went through about half of the show without mentioning the name Celsius. So I'll just throw a simple question at you. Everything that we talked about, obviously, there also quite a few years have passed since you were there. But can you share some of the philosophy behind the security aspect of Celsius, right? Because the rest is already known, and I don't want to go into that. But I'm just curious. Celsius was a major company, for those who don't remember. I was dealing with lending, correct me if I'm wrong. And at the end of the day, can you share a little bit about the system that you've built there, and what type of precautions did you take back then to protect the company from being hacked?
Yeah. So Celsius had the retail side with the mobile app, the web app, client facing, consumer facing. And it had the institutional sides of OTC and borrowing and lending and such, both sides, borrowing and lending. It had mining. It had all the aspects that today you'll find at big and even medium companies, meaning CFI, centralized finance, DeFi, decentralized finance, and traditional finance aspects. Of course, you do on-ramping and off-ramping and fiat conversion and swaps and more. So bottom line, it had everything. And from the security perspective, you can say a lot was invested. My team was security and IT. It was 40 plus people with all the domains and all the expertise and everything we're mentioning here, meaning 24/7 monitoring and secure development lifecycle, yeah, and product security and ISO, and on the way to SOC 2 and various other regulatory, of course, frameworks and registrations and licenses and such. So from that perspective, nothing was saved. Yeah, meaning this is a big company. Yeah, it deals with a lot of money, a lot of funds, a lot of clients, very diverse. You need now the Air Force and tanks and submarines, yeah, to deal with it. Meaning you need this 360, and a lot was invested, bottom line, in security and all the adjacent interfaces, yeah, working with compliance and working with risk, and yes, having good cohesion. From that perspective, a lot was invested. The experience taught us a lot and taught others also a lot, meaning how to protect and how to comply and how to build something that's relatively new. Back then, there were even less CISOs and security and audit firms and whatever. And back then, the big audit firms today, for example, or the big vendors today, back then they were small, yeah, because a lot of the things were at the beginning. We're talking about 2020, yeah, and such. So 2019 even, things advanced, but from my perspective, yes, it was a 360 Web2, Web3, you can say, apparatus framework, and that's what we gave. That's what we gave. That's how we protected. That's how we helped security, helped the company scale. Yeah, of course there were other problems, but from building and working with companies like Cyvers, back then it was a bit different and such. From that perspective, we did everything by the book, yeah, or we wrote the book, because of course the vendors and the frameworks were new. So 200% was given from that perspective, bottom line. Then, of course, yes, we took the lessons learned from these aspects. Like I said, how security, compliance, risk, legal, and the other departments work together. And of course, let's implement these lessons learned from these building blocks. I'm not talking about more financial things. And yeah, that was the goal back then. It's the goal now.
Yeah, it's a good point, by the way, the fact that, in my humble opinion, right now, you cannot only focus on security, right? So we talked about kind of the multidisciplinary attitude of any person in Web3. But if you take a CISO, I think that the CISO nowadays should be much more aware of the compliance challenges and the legal challenges and the fraud prevention aspects, even if there is, a risk manager and a compliance manager, because these things are intertwined, right? Because we see at Cybers that, for instance, money can originate from a hack on a DeFi platform and then being, swapped on various dexes and then going through, some centralized exchange, eventually to a PSP and then off ramping. And, money travels. And at the end of the day, dirty money, has close proximity, whether it's dirty money that originated from hacks, it will eventually become a money laundering problem, and it might become a compliance problem. And somewhere in the middle, there might also be some fraud mechanism that is being put in play. So everything is interconnected. That's my experience from talking to quite a lot of companies and from seeing those incidents.
Yeah. I was like, we prepared a bit for this talk, and in general, I was also thinking, okay, what are the key points and what are the challenges, of course, of CISOs, risk managers. And we know that Israel, from the VC, venture capital, startups ecosystem, yeah, it's very enterprise focused and B2B, yeah, not too many B2 startups and VCs, yeah, investors. And we always talk about focus and focus and focus. You need to do one thing amazing in order to build your startup and advance it and grow and scale. And here in parallel, take the poor, risk manager, chief risk officer, or CISO. Focus, focus is, it's hard to say. Let's be focused, because today there's so many regulatory requirements, because the regulators in the past years, of course, they've learned from all the lessons learned in the incidents. Yeah. And then today the Excel of these are the requirements that you need to comply with on, like we said, custody and how you deal with the AWS security and monitoring and backups and more. These are tens of topics, yeah, if not more. And then hundreds of requirements. You need to be multidisciplinary. You need to understand the financial aspects in real life. And like you said, human behavior. And it's not only, okay, configuring firewalls or keeping keys secure, or, okay, let's just do audits and monitoring and call it a day. It's dealing with people and it's dealing with counterparties, and every second there's a curveball, yeah, or something new that you need to deal with. So CISO and focus, yeah, it's more CISO and multidisciplinary approaches. And the only way to achieve it is really to work with the other departments, to leverage the other departments in the organization, like we said, compliance, legal, and risk and finance and such, when they exist. And if they don't exist, okay, that's our job to build these things as much as we can.
For sure. So we talked about the regulation part, and we're going to talk about it in a second more deeply. And obviously, we talked a lot about the security part and the IT. But one more aspect, which is perhaps more dominant in the Web2 space, is certifications.
Yep.
So I've recently spoke to Mark Rusianos, who is a CCSS steering committee member of C4, which is kind of the consortium that is behind the standard. And one of the most interesting things that I've heard there is the fact that right now, in the latest version of the CCSS requirements, they have actually added monitoring, real-time monitoring. What do you think about that? Do you think that any wallet, obviously a wallet, but perhaps even other platforms like DeFi platforms, should they have monitoring of their assets, and why?
Yeah. So monitoring, for my perspective, it's one of the first things that you need to add, the 24/7 aspect, for a simple reason. Yeah, crypto / Web3 is a 24/7 business. There's no end of day. like in now a gas station or 7-Eleven or a Zara, in which you count the money that you have in the cash. So 24/7 business, 24/7 monitoring. These are one of the first things organizations should have in place. If it's with people end to end, 24/7 monitoring, or semi-automated and semi-people driven with pager duty that will alert you now. But to have the sensors on the money that's deployed, on the internal wallets, on the counterparties as much as possible. From my perspective, it's basic, easier said than done. Yeah, of course. But it's one of the basic things that you need when you're a 24/7 ecosystem or business, because you don't have, like we said, okay, we're closing the day and then we see what appears in the cashier, yeah, or we check the cameras, yeah. Everything is live. Everything happens right now. Yeah, there's no cooling period of 3 or 4 days for the bank transaction to now be sent, in which fraud, prevention, detection, various controls are now being applied and it's scanned. Everything is just real time 24/7. 24/7 monitoring, 24/7 response also, bottom line, is key. And the response is, even if it's manual, automated, in between, that's probably even more important. You need people / machines or capabilities 24/7 on these things. Otherwise, you're just, watching the car with the money, yeah, with the gold sacks or whatever, drive by, and you're gonna miss it. So that's
Yeah,
key.
the need to respond in real time is a very good point. We've seen that on average, it takes about 4 hours for a company to actually figure out that it was hacked, right?
Yeah.
And we even saw more than that. Even a day can pass by before the company leaders can actually see the hack happening, and it takes up to 1 hour for a hacker to steal everything. Up to 1 hour. Oftentimes, it's only just a few seconds. So this discrepancy is obviously one of the main reasons for real-time monitoring and obviously detection and prevention to exist.
When I do on the Web2 side, yeah, quizzes or awareness, and you can look at the IBM reports and such. When you talk about, okay, how much time has passed when companies at times they understand that they have a hacker in their network. In Web2, you can say in regular businesses, but also Web3, it could be even tens of or hundreds of days until you understand that someone's listening to your emails, yeah, hijacking them. Someone's in your network. Someone's in your CRM or similar, yeah. So it's even scarier, yeah, in the sense that organizations are blind in many aspects to the Web2, to the Web3, yeah. Given organization, not everyone, of course, yeah. So the need to understand, okay, is everything legit in the network, and do we really understand? It's even more important. And yeah, companies for days and hundreds of days have had, if it's government related, hackers or criminal gangs, that this is their role in life. They're just sitting dormant in the networks. So it's even a bigger problem. Yeah. That's why we need to do more threat hunting and going into the logs and anomaly detection and more, because not everything is okay. We see now money moving and that's the incident. At times there's so much preparation by the hackers and such. You're just sitting and step by step even stealing data, or it's dripping slowly by slow, step by step. Yeah. So that's that.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Again, just to reference to the WazirX hack, right?
Yeah.
The malicious smart contract that was used to hack into the multi-sig wallets was actually deployed 8 days before the hack.
Yeah.
And obviously we identified it. Back then we didn't know who the victim is going to be, because not always you can know. You can know in real time, sometimes even beforehand. In this particular case, 8 days before, the preparations have already started taking place. And obviously it's water under the bridge, but have WazirX used our system, this could have been prevented. But it's a very good point that you're making, that oftentimes the hack starts way before the funds or the data has already been stolen. There are a lot of preparations, and if you have the proper tools, you can actually identify them and respond in real time.
Yeah. We saw KnowBe4, for example, and again, there are tens of stories. KnowBe4 is a training platform, cybersecurity, phishing campaigns, and they were very candid about the fact that they hired, and he was with the company for a few days, so they caught it in time or before any harm was done, a hacker / an insider from North Korea. So these things, a lot in the news, again, with large American companies and global, in which for hundreds of days or even years, there are insiders or people in the system. It's not only like preparation from the outside. And therefore, risk management, HR security, human resources security, background checks, not to make it more hard or to confuse. There's a lot that goes into keeping an organization safe.
Yeah.
A lot of dynamics.
Yeah. I want to zoom in on the regulation aspect. And, usually when people hear about regulation, again, thanks to Celsius and FTX and Binance and so on, they're usually focused on, the securities side of things and, the investor protection and so on. But one aspect that is often overlooked, and I see that something is moving in that field, is basically the regulatory requirements with respect to security measures. Now we have DORA and we have NIS2, which you wrote about extensively. Can you kind of give us the 101 on that one? What's DORA? What's NIS2? What will it change? When it will be implemented, if even?
Yeah. So all these things are in play, already implemented or enforced, or will be enforced at the beginning of the year, mid-January 2025 and such. And like you said about the certifications, there's an understanding that we want to protect and / ensure as much as possible, like the credit card industry has been doing for tens of years, give or take. So DORA, as an example, Digital Operations Resiliency or Resilience Act. This is something that's coming into play and will be enforced at the start of the year. And this is a subset or a prerequisite to MiCA, Markets in Crypto Act. So in order to be MiCA compliant and work in the EU as a crypto asset service provider and such, you'll need to comply with DORA. And DORA, as the name suggests, operational resiliency, talks a lot about risk assessment, backups, third-party risk assessment, counterparty risk management, like we said, incident response and such. The EU and step by step, the rest of the world, and some is already in place in Asia and other locations, geolocations. They understand that high standards that we're used to in the banking sector, finance sector, and such, they need to be implemented within crypto. So these are things that are immediate. They're driven by MiCA and such for the anti-money laundering and compliance, financial regulations, financial compliance. But, and this is a good thing, they have the sub-requirements or subsets of let's deal with cyber also, because countries, first of all, they want to build a trust. They want to build consumer trust. And yes, there are a lot of incidents, of course, across the board. But yes, from GDPR that dealt and deals with data protection and consumer privacy and you could say freedom of data and such. I need to know that someone's using my data. Yes, there are a lot of incidents, but at least there are initiatives and more importantly, enforcement. So, companies get their things together and start implementing and protecting as needed and not being just another small shop or such. Take things seriously from all these aspects that we're mentioning. So that's DORA, and NIS2 talks about network and information systems, network and information security. This has been active for the past few years, mainly for critical infrastructure in the EU and various areas, meaning now you could say energy companies and critical financial institutions. This is less relevant to crypto, but it's very similar from the requirements of DORA and some others. So regulation and certifications, like you said, are key and king today, but it needs to be more than an Excel exercise, meaning it needs to be concrete, boots on the ground, show me the evidence. And like you said about audits, not only one time, because yes, companies at time, they treat ISO, SOC 2 or all these, you could say, regulations as, okay, we'll make our bed, we'll shave, we'll be super elegant and such. And after that, we go back to our horrible habits. And that's problematic, of course. We need continuous compliance, continuous security.
Yeah, you made a very good point. I think that, on the philosophical level, if authority was decentralized, right? And now every protocol is kind of like its own bank, or even more than that, right? It's a bank, it's a payment provider. Basically, it also holds data of the users and so on and so forth. But the responsibility also has to be decentralized, right? So you're saying that things that were mostly for critical infrastructure, right? Nowadays they need to be implemented even in the smaller companies, even in the smallest DeFi protocol, because at the end of the day, the amount of power that they have, they need to keep up with the responsibility for that power as well.
Correct. And everything is intertwined today, meaning small companies work with big companies, and of course the other way around. And then you have this connected web. So if you breach the small window, you can say you may have access to the bigger players and such. And of course, today we see this is the barrier of entry for AI products and such. The barrier of entry of DeFi protocols and such is relatively low, meaning it's easy, relatively easy, of course, to start now a startup that develops some AI product, and it will be very good for banks and big companies and lucrative. The teams are amazing, the teams are innovative and everything, but of course you need to keep the security standards, because it's relatively easy, again, quote unquote, to ship a product, but it takes time to secure, and it takes time to build healthy habits, risk mitigation habits. And these days and time, it just, things need to be quick, but also we need to see how security risk mitigation is ingrained in these product services, etc. Needs to be built in, bottom line.
Definitely. So unfortunately, we're almost out of time. Just to conclude, I would like to ask you kind of a forward-looking question. So we talked about, the technology, and we talked about the regulation and the certification, and even the HR aspects, right, of security. What needs to change in 2025 in order for the industry to become healthier? Is it just taking all the good things that we talked about, DORA and CCSS and the new technology that was put in play, and just to implement that? Or would you say that we need something new, some new technology, new approaches, new regulation? What's your take on it?
So there are various tracks, not by order of priority. One track is, yes, vendors / solutions that are more platform driven, or they have the platform approach. See Palo Alto in the regular cybersecurity world, and today Microsoft and others. It's a one-stop shop for everything you need. So for network security and data protection and all the firewalls and code security and cloud security and more. So yes, this will take a bit of time in crypto, but the platform approach in which you see various angles and you don't need to integrate between 3, 4, 10 vendors, if at all, if they exist even, that's important, of course. It'll be easier for the clients to just buy 1 or 2 solutions instead of buying 10 and doing integrations that most of the times don't work. So that's one. And then, yes, there's certifications, everything about regulation, critical, important. We just need to verify that the auditors and the enforcement and the practitioners and the implementation is real, and it's not as real as possible. And it's not like, yes, we have in the regular world, you can have be ISO compliant or SOC 2 compliant in an instant. Yeah, like, you count to 10 and you're compliant, give or take. I'm exaggerating, but I think the point is clear. So it needs to be continuous compliance. You need to implement it as needed. And to summarize, again, this is the common denominator that we've been talking about. Understanding the financial risk, understanding the business, working with the counterparties, understanding the counterparties, doing here at the private or the company level, doing your own research on the counterparties and just treating it in a more holistic way, how we mitigate risk, how we work with counterparties, how we help them bring in security. So these are some of the key things. Of course, a lot more but to say about it. But yeah, the trajectory currently is good. They're good people, good solutions, vendors. Yes, regulation is catching up. And now, we just need to go deeper. Now we're like from the 10 phases of this pyramid or 10 levels. Yeah, we're in level 2 or 3 or whatever. And now we just need to drill until we get to the oil, for example. So that's that. Yeah.
On this optimistic and happy note, we'll end the show. Shiran, thank you so much. I hope to see you again in the future and to catch up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.
Web3 Watchdogs is sponsored by Cybers, your one-stop shop for Web3 security and threat mitigation. Cybers harnesses the power of AI to eliminate hacks, scams, fraud, and compliance challenges in real time, and even before they happen. For more information, visit cybers.ai. That's CYVERS.ai.